My blessings, but I has me with the hard times, not sometimes.
Three kids. And they didn't bring their, oh, with their dog too, their three dogs. Lizzie, Rocco, and then my youngest one, Glenn, has a Bronco. So she has a, so we have two vehicles and everybody on it. It's so efficient and the kids just.
Anything. Like, not
No,
even
that's not
throwback
true.
stuff.
It's not true. My son-in-law, Joe, called me that he was having,
It's 1 o'clock. Yeah. Bang, bang.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Public Service Commission meeting of July 13th. Thank you. See, I think we have Commissioner Gray got a booster shot, and he's going to be visiting us, I believe, by telephone. Do we have Commissioner Gray? Are you there?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I am here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for calling in, Harold. Okay, we have a reading of the meeting minutes of June 15th, 2022. Anybody have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Will we adopt the minutes as presented?
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
The motion carries. Consent agenda. We've got 4 matters on the consent agenda. Anybody want to take one of the consent agenda matters off and place it on the regular calendar? Commissioner Drexler.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second the motion?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Okay, that gets us to the regular agenda. And we have 1 matter on the regular agenda. If Ms. Scott would come forward with her parties. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Before we begin, there will be information that has been marked confidential that will be discussed. I'm trying to avoid it as much as I can, but sometimes it can't be helped. So I don't know how we want to go about that. I don't think there's anybody in the hearing room that is not covered by either the state requirements of confidentiality or employed by Tidewater. One person? Okay. Well, you were talking to Kirsten. I thought maybe you were. All right. Well,
Ms. Scott, do you have any suggestions?
I do not, we also don't know who's on the phone.
well, I was going to bring that up next.
Well, why don't we proceed and then reserve your comments that are confidential and any discussion.
That's kind of hard because they sort of, I'll see what I can do.
Well, I presume that Ms. Scott will interrupt you if there's something said that she doesn't want to hear publicly. So we'll have
Well, I was
one
going to say,
referee in the room.
I might be saying a lot that she doesn't want to hear, but
I know Ms. Scott, she can hit back.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Gray. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Along the lines of concerns on confidentiality, I'm just curious to note, are we aware of who all is perhaps remotely connected to this meeting, even though they may not physically be in the room?
Yeah, we've just discussed that. We have people on the telephone, I presume, or in the live stream. So yes, we have that problem. I think we're aware of the problems. It's the solution that we are searching for.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, other than going into executive session, I don't know how else you would address that.
Is it, I mean, is it in each one of you, how many,
well, our petition is based on records that Tidewater submitted claiming confidentiality.
aren't there some conclusions that can be stipulated to? I understand that the application, which is understandable, and, you know, I know what the general position of Tidewater is because of their filings. Aren't there matters that can be stipulated to without having to discuss them in public?
Well, the stipulations would probably need to be put on the record.
Well, we could do that under executive session. I'm just, you know, I'm not saying that's the be-all and end-all, I'm just putting that on the table. Otherwise, we could just make you do your best, and Ms. Scott may interrupt you, then we can go into executive session and maybe more thoroughly discuss it? Or are the issues so inextricably bound together that we need to go into executive session from the get-to-go, and then hear the arguments, and then come back into public session for voting?
I don't know that we would need to go into executive session for everything, but certainly to the extent that my arguments rely on numbers that Tidewater claims to be confidential, and it does.
Okay, Mr. O'Brien?
Chair Winslow, perhaps there's just two solutions. One, either Ms. Iori can attempt to point to the confidential numbers in documents that we have in front of us without saying them on the record, or if that's too awkward or impossible, we go into executive session.
Ms. Scott, Ms. Iori?
I don't disagree with Mr. O'Brien.
Nor do I. It would definitely be awkward
Then I
trying
think we
to.
go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, this is
And if we go into executive session, we will lose Commissioner Gray unless we set up a separate private line.
We can do that.
I'm sorry.
Well, we have
Chairman, can you
also
hear me?
got Glenn Watkins on the line, so we would need to have him call in as well.
Sorry, trying to delete that. Good. Oh, yeah, we can do that, sorry.
So I guess where we are right now is we're going to go into executive session. Is that the suggestion, with Glenn and Commissioner Gray on a separate line, being the only two people who will be on that line connected to this room?
We can do that, yes.
Can I ask a procedural question, Veronica?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we proceed? So the purpose today is to determine whether there is a sufficient basis for the commission to determine to go forward, is my understanding of what today is about. And if you decide to go forward, there would be a subsequent hearing with witnesses, et cetera, where this would be further discussed. So I'm trying to understand how much we need to get into with witnesses and other things for purposes of today's session.
I don't intend to have any witnesses testify unless the commission had questions, but this would be my argument. My argument relies on, obviously, on what was in our petition. Our petition was filed both with a public version, which had redactions of allegedly confidential information, and a confidential version. And in addition, Tidewater's response goes, I think, a little more beyond just whether the commission is going to issue a rule to show cause, because they argue why the commission should deny the petition. And to address those arguments, again, I will be relying on Tidewater's own documents.
May I just make one suggestion? I'm sorry, Chair Winslow, to try to cut through this. I mean, Tidewater put in their response, which was publicly filed, that their filed quarterly rates of returns on an annual basis exceed what was authorized in their last rate case. That's in the public record. If the public advocate can make an argument based on that and simply pointing to the numbers that we have in our documents, then perhaps that would be enough at this early stage of this proceeding.
That's not the only confidential information that we relied on and that we will rely on. It's not just the earned rate of return.
Well, what I'm hearing is that we need to go into executive session because it appears that the issues are so intertwined as to be inseparable. And I guess that leaves, is there any objection to that? I mean, Ms. Scott, Ms. Iori, and there's no third party that I'm aware of.
There actually is. She's sitting in the back.
Well, why isn't she sitting at the table to represent the party that she represents?
I don't know. I don't know who she is, so.
Chair Winslow is
Oh.
Courtney Emerson.
Oh, I didn't re-
Martine. I was just here for the consent agenda because we had 2 matters on it.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
And I'm happy to leave the consent agenda. No further interest.
Well, that makes it easier.
Sure.
So do we have, so we're gonna go into executive session? And Ms. Emerson?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, this is Commissioner Gray. I was disconnected because of Muzak on the other end of the line. Can someone just brief me carefully if there's a different step I should take at this juncture?
You know, as soon as we know what that step will be, Commissioner, we'll let you know. We've just sort of come to the conclusion that we need to go into executive session to hear the arguments because the arguments are not valid or not arguable, so to speak, without mentioning the confidential information. And none of the parties that I'm aware of interested in this matter have any objection to that. So there's very little chance it would be an appeal of that decision, I would imagine. So we're going to go into executive session, Commissioner Gray, and then Matt Hardigan will be, or someone will be in touch with you with a phone number to call in on, and obviously that number will be provided to Ms. Iori as well. And we will go into, unless we have an objection, we're going to go take about a...
Want to vote?
Yeah, we will. Then we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Okay, so I need someone to make a motion to go into executive session if they care to do so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion to go into executive session, which will be because of the confidential information set forth in documents filed by both parties? That was filed confidentially. All those in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
We are
Aye.
now-
Just send me a text, please. Thank you.
Text, okay, a text will be fine. Thank you, Commissioner Gray.